Ooh, Bad Larry.
What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Bad Larry Kingdom. I'm your host, Bad Larry, and today's episode is X Factor number 69. Nice. This is part 3 of 4 of the Muir Island Saga. It's written by Fabian Nicieza. And you could tell he's struggling with the writing a bit. The dialogue is a big cringe, but it's okay because we've got Wilson Portacio on the pencils. And this issue means there's only 2 more issues left in the X Factor series before we wrap it up. So let's check this issue out. If you look at that middle image, that big blob of orange is a group of angry civilians. They're trying to storm the White House. They're enraged because the Shadow King has turned everybody's anger and hatred level up to 100. Valerie Cooper, or what we think is Valerie Cooper, has called in X Factor for help. Everybody is just enraged. This is a pretty cool splash page. What I think is hilarious, the trench coat as the disguise. You know, the Thing from Fantastic Four loves to use the trench coat. Raphael from Ninja Turtles uses the trench coat. The trench coat is the giveaway. Especially look at Beast. His big furry blue ass head popping out of this trench coat. You're not hiding from nobody. Anyway, so the X Factor is called in by Valerie Cooper. She's saying there's craziness going on. We need y'all's help. And X Factor is like, well, you know, it's our civic duty. Fine, we're gonna help. Marvel Girl picks up. There's a gunshot. They need to go and help the gunshot victim before things get out of hand. Iceman creates some sweet ice barriers to start separating people to keep them from killing and attacking each other because they've got their anger amped up by the Shadow King. And I feel like Iceman could pretty much handle this whole situation himself. He could, pretty much use it in his ice powers. But Beast is able to find the guy who got shot. Marvel Girl is able to get him raised up so Archangel can take him to the hospital. Cyclops blasts the shooter. They're on the job, baby. X Factor hands over the situation outside back to the cops. They seem to be able to handle it, and as they go back in, X Factor is worried that the president is going to just blame the mutants. You can't do that. And Marvel Girl makes a weird statement saying she wished she didn't have her telepathic powers back. Yeah, right. You know, she's been struggling without these telepathic powers. She's been whining and crying for ages in this series about not having her telepathic powers. You would never say, once you had them back, that now you wish you didn't have them. Stupid. Professor X is here alongside the now freed and restored Colossus, and they're both looking dapper as hell. Come on now, let's give it up to Professor X's style. Look as suave as hell. And it's weird that he calls the X-Men my children because he doesn't look that much older than them here. But anyway, so he's really recruiting them back, I guess, saying, you know, hey, I've got the X-Men, but they're cooked, but the world needs your help right now to fight the Shadow King. Not knowing, old boy standing right behind him in the blue hair and the blue beard, the FBI agent, that is the Shadow King. Very interesting. We head back to Muir Island where Forge has released both Wolverine and Rogue from the Shadow King's control. And here we see Fabian's writing get a bit corny. Wolverine says, you're going to get the chance, girl, meaning to punch some people. We're going after the king himself. And then Forge is like, Elvis? Nah. It's corny. Forge, Rogue, and Wolverine are sitting around trying to figure out what Shadow King's Achilles heel is. How are they going to attack him? Wolverine says he's can't smell him. He knows everybody on the island and nobody is the Shadow King, so he must not be in a body. Rogue says, there's just like it's like an umbrella. The force just overtakes you. And Forge is really trying to figure out how to stop and neutralize the source of the Shadow King. And then all of a sudden Banshee comes along, possessed by the Shadow King, blasting them all with his sonic voice. The issue is, how do they neutralize their fellow X-Men and friends without hurting them and killing them? Because Banshee's going full bore, but they, Rogue and Forge and Wolverine have to pull their punches, and Forge is like, fuck it, we're just gonna shoot his ass. Go get him, Wolverine. Forge is shot, hits Banshee full on. Banshee's like, shiver me timbers. Wakes up with Wolverine in his face, and then right in the neck. Forge neutralizes the Shadow King's ability to control Banshee, and then there's like a little microchip in there that keeps them from retaking over his mind. So now Banshee is free from the mind control of the Shadow King. Somehow, some way, there has to be this transition between X Factor, the current team with Cyclops, to the new X Factor team, which will have Havoc and Polaris, etc. Strong guys. So right here, Polaris is a key because the Shadow King is using Polaris, whose power has mutated, to be a catalyst for negative emotions. So the Shadow King's plan, he's got the world gone angry. All of that anger is being released. Polaris absorbs it. Shadow King takes it from Polaris, feeding himself in this. She's basically the middleman for negative energy, negative emotions that she's unknowingly participating in fueling, powering up, and energizing the Shadow King. So that's how she's a key figure in this issue, and then how they're going to use her and transition into the new X Factor team in just 2 issues. Agent Cooper from the government, X Factor, Professor X, and FBI agent Rice are in a submarine, technological submarine, that is protecting them from the psychic energies. They think that they're safe from the Shadow King. They don't realize the Shadow King is literally standing right there as Agent Reese with the blue beard, and they're approaching Muir Island. Val Cooper's like, y'all might be walking into a trap. Cyclops is like, oh well, walking into a trap is what we do best, and getting out of it, because we're the number one. Weird, all of a sudden, Agent Rice's beard has turned red. Very weird. And his hair has turned red. Weird. Professor X is laying out the plan. Forge has created some sort of static zone that allows the assault team to enter the island, which is going to shield them from the Shadow King's awareness. Professor X has to stay on the ship because obviously the Shadow King will detect his presence right away. And he's like, oh, good thing the Shadow King doesn't know Jean Grey's regained her telepathy. Well, yeah, now he does because he's standing right there. Professor X says they need to sever the bond between the human host and the Shadow King, and Professor X says he thinks it's Moira McTaggart or his son Legion, which he's totally wrong because the Shadow King is literally standing right next to him for the moment. The big unveil here is that Valerie Cooper, Agent Cooper, is under the mind control of the Shadow King as well, who's in the human host of this FBI agent, Agent Rice, whose body is technically dead right now. As the assault team is about to launch onto Muir Island, everybody's doing a bit of huggy-huggy. I love this suit that Archangel is in. We haven't really seen him with that yellow and blue pattern before. He's always just maintained his pink color, so I like seeing that at least once. But Shadow King is a bit too cocky right now. He's all about, like, victory is mine. The X Factor team and Professor X are doing a bit of reminiscing. And the big reveal here is that Professor X says, good luck, my X-Men. This is obviously trying to cement this idea that X Factor are transitioning back into X-Men. They were the original X-Men. So it's not a mistake that Professor X called them X-Men and not X Factor or my students or my children or whatever. It was purposeful that he says, good luck, my X-Men, because obviously in 2 issues they will return and become the Jim Lee awesome X-Men that everybody loves. Agent Rice, aka the Shadow King, is kind of poking the bear here at Professor X, saying he's remains skeptical about the entire operation. He doesn't believe it's going to work. Well, because he's got his own counter operation going on. And obviously I spoke a little too soon a couple pages ago when I said I liked Warren in the blue and yellow. Obviously the colorist decided to color him in the yellow and not the pink, because clearly Archangel is back in the pink. Archangel has scouted ahead and has uncovered the X-Men who are now under the mind control and influence of the Shadow King. So he's uncovered Multiple Man, Psylocke, Gambit, Jubilee, and old Myra McTaggart. So it's the classic hero versus hero. One group is mind controlled, one is not. Let's see our heroes fight it out. I'm kind of impressed. Not gonna lie. My favorite team, the original X-Men and X Factor, kind of whooped ass. They took down the X-Men, even though they're mind controlled, pretty easily. Jean Grey took out Psylocke. Cyclops blasted Gambit. What was hilarious, Jubilee's like, oh, who is that? Because, Jubilee, Cyclops, they don't really know each other that much yet. And he's like, oh, who blasted Gambit? It must have been that Cyclops guy. Not that I mind that much, because, Jubilee doesn't like Gambit, because he almost killed her the last issue. He made her bleed. And Beast takes care of Siren pretty easily. Iceman ices up Madrox so he can't get hit, so he can't duplicate. And Moira, what is she gonna do? And she says, oh no, blast you to Hades. Hilarious. And then, it's over before it even starts. Cyclops reports back to Professor X. Yeah. Easy work. Light work, Professor X. Light work. You know who's not light work? This mother trucker Legion. And why he gotta call my boy Beast a gorilla? That is so rude, this whole gorilla thing. He doesn't look like a gorilla at all. Anyway, Shadow King exposes himself. He starts suffocating the shit out of Professor X with his hands. Professor X calls out to Valerie Cooper, help, Valerie. And the Shadow King says, nah, man, you're cooked. Valerie Cooper's mine. Your team is cooked. I'm the winner, you're the loser. In this game we've been playing for our whole lives, Professor X. And now that you're going to be dead, I'm going to take over the world and the astral plane. I'm going to be king of the universe. But say what? Valerie Cooper was never Valerie Cooper this whole time. She was Mystique. And I'm telling y'all, people sleep on Mystique and the shape-shifting powers. She's so sneaky. But Mystique comes to Professor X's aid, blasts Shadow King's face into Kingdom Come. He's cooked. And so now the Shadow King has to leave this body that he was occupying, this FBI agent Rice, and that's where we see Legion go. Look right. He's screaming because now the Shadow King is inhabiting Legion's body. Oh no. X Factor sees that Polaris is the Nexus. She is the one, the middleman I said earlier, that is absorbing all this negative energy, that is feeding the Shadow King. They realize that the strings have been cut. The Shadow King needs a new host, and they're about to just rip Polaris from the Nexus, which might kill her. And all of a sudden, Forge shows up along with Rogue and Wolverine and says, "Don't touch her!" They obviously have a different plan. On a side note, I never knew that Iceman and Polaris were once an item. Obviously not now, but they were. So kudos to you, Iceman. Kudos to you. Well, I was wrong. Forge didn't have a plan at all. He was just trying to buy time because he didn't want to kill Polaris. I mean, the choice was simple. You have to risk it for the biscuit. You don't know if pulling her out of the Nexus is going to kill Polaris. There's a chance, but if not, there's a 100% chance Shadow King reincorporates himself into a new body, which they dilly-dally around, and guess what? That's exactly what happens. Shadow King takes a new form in Legion's body, which is not great because Legion's got too many powers. And what the hell is this? Like I said, good job, Forge, making them stop. Because look what happened! Looks like the whole entire island blew up! Who could survive this? Man, what an issue! So this Muir Island part 4 will conclude in Uncanny X-Men number 280, which I will have out tomorrow, I hope. So make sure you hit the like button for this issue. Stay tuned. Subscribe. Peace.